So let's get started. Om Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Om Parthaya Pratibodhitam Bhagavatam Narayanena Swayam Vyasena Gratitam Purana Muninam Madhye Mahabharatam Advaitam Ridavarshini Bhagavati Ashtadashadhyayini Ambatvam Anusandatami Bhagavad Gita Bhavatveshini Namostute Vyasa Vishana Buddhe Pulla Ravindayata Patra Netra Yena Tvaya Bharata Taila Purnaha Prajvalito Jnanamaya Pradipaha Prapanna Parijataya Totra Vetraika Panaye Jnanamudraya Krishnaya Geetam Ridatuhe Namaha Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kamsa Chanuramardanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadgurum Sarvadharman Parityajya Mamekam Sharanam Vraja Aham Tva Sarva Papebhyah Mokshayishyami Ma Shuchaha. So welcome to the last lecture on the 9th chapter. So today we will actually complete the last shloka. Last week we just saw it on the surface, I would say, but today we'll go through a little more in detail, and after that we will review the entire chapter, and we will also chant the 9th chapter completely. And I would love to hear from you on what was it about the 9th chapter that really struck you as something different, or what is your favorite shloka from here? What is it that we can take it as a goal? Like one of the shlokas here, it says Gatir Bharta Prabhu Sakshi. At the end of the day, the goal for us is not really the materialistic goals that we're pursuing in life, having been given this human body, but it is something more than that. So we will also review that aspect of it. So chapter 9 is coming to an end. So for reflection time, I just want to take a couple of beautiful thoughts that Usha, who joins us in the sessions, she has put this here. So let me put that first. She asks about how in the 4th chapter, like, Krishna says that the 4 castes are based on the gunas, but then in shloka 32, which can appear to be pretty controversial actually, where he says, Mam hi partha vyapashatya epi syuhu papa yoneya striyo vaishyas tatha shutraha tepi yanti param gatim. So her thought is that, well, it seems like it is my birth. It seems like a contradiction, not, so we do have, enough to deal with. Why does it seem different? So we will address this first. So 1 second. Let me see. Yeah, so basically, the reason I put this thing here is because I just want us to focus on why we think they're different. So in fourth chapter, basically this Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam Guna Karma Vibhakashaha, Krishna had basically spoken about how in society we are divided into kind of four groups of people based upon two things. One is our own guna and the other one is karma. So let's take karma first. The reason I take karma is because it's easy for us to relate to today's world. So just like in today's world, we have, we need in a very broad classification, four different groups of people to complete everything that is needed to be done in the world. So, example, we have people who are the leaders, who are essentially getting, kind of decision makers, policy makers, if you will, presidents of countries, CEOs, those kind of people, managers, supervisors. So that's one group of people. The second group of people is the people who are consultants, who are think tanks, who are the scientists, and who are the people who guide all these leaders to make the right decisions. So, and then the third group of people are the people who really provide all the resources, whether it's in the form of money or kind, but they are the people who really are the kind of the backbone in providing the resource people. And then finally, the fourth kind of people are people who get the work done. So this is the four Chaturvarnyam in terms of the karma we had talked about. And then the other aspect which was talked about Chaturvarnyam Maya Srishtam, gunas are basically the qualities of people. This is not to be confused with skill, but it is the qualities. So when we talk about qualities like, the wanting to study a lot, wanting to always focus on doing good for the society, that kind of thing. The second kind of quality is more of an ambition, passion. That's the second one. And the third one is the quality which is laziness, procrastination, that kind of quality. So this is the gunas part of it. The karma is actually the like we talked about the skills which is needed to complete the society. So that was Chaturvarnyam. Having said that, in shloka number 32, essentially what, like I said, in 32, he says, Mam hi partha vipashita yepi syuhu papa yonayaha. So there are four different kinds of people that he's referring to. And it is not to be confused that, for example, papa yonayaha meaning that person who is here in this book, it is translated as of sinful birth. So sinful birth doesn't necessarily mean that somebody who is an outcast of a society or somebody who who is who is a condemned person. That is not how necessarily it has to be viewed, but it has to be somebody who happened to be born in an environment where which is not very conducive for growth. Okay. And this could be, based on past karmas. So the person is, kind of paying back whatever that was done in the past. So Papa Yonaya could be construed that way. But that group, Papa Yonaya, doesn't mean that it includes Stri and Vaishyas and Shudras. That is not how it is supposed to be meant. It is just that a person who has been disadvantaged because of their the birth. Okay, somebody who did not have a conducive environment. So let's take, for example, in our own scriptures. You had people like Prahalad. Prahalad was born in a very kind of Asura family. But then, even though he was born in that disadvantage, with that handicap or a disadvantage, he did, he had the ability to focus on what he had to do and thereby grow out of it. So that is what you would look at Papa Yoneha. Now, Stri, even though it is being translated here as Stri as women, in our scriptures, there is never ever any focus on the physical aspect of a person. So Stree here would mean somebody who is born more the the quality of a Stree compared to a male versus female on a from a physical point of view, is that the Stree person has more of an emotional aspect, because obviously Stree is the one who gives birth, and in order to take care of a child, you need to have a lot of emotion, right? So Stree can be looked at somebody person who's more of an emotional nature. Now, we looked at when we talked about the gunas, we talked about the sattva, rajas, and tamas, right? So a sattvic person is a person who is very focused on the knowledge aspect of it. From a mind level, the person is very stable. Whereas a Rajasic person or a Tamasic person is a person who is more of an emotional nature. And for example, a Rajas person, the emotion translates into more of a passion. Whereas in a Tamasic person, the same mind, that emotion leads to more of, I would say, negative emotions, or possibly somebody who is extremely fearful, afraid, that kind of thing. So here, Stree, when he's referring to, is that a person who's more of an emotional nature, and such a person, when the person has more of emotion, whether it's more of ambition or more of this negative emotion, like we talked about, such a person's mind is not stable, and therefore the person is not uh, eligible immediately for that knowledge. But then here, what he's trying to say is that uh, for those this one others, even they can attain. So he's just trying to show the gradation of people from that point of view. So people, and he, for example, in 33, I think, he talks about the holy Brahmanas and the royal saints. So this is, he talks about what to talk about these Brahmanas. So in comparison to them, he says, even a person who's of this highly emotional nature like a Stree has the capability of achieving that greatness. Now, next he comes to Vaishya. So Vaishya people, again, the person means, the focus of a Vaishya is more on getting material resources for the society. Therefore, the mind is not immediately focused upon the higher knowledge. And therefore, he says, Vaishyas from that point of view. But even for Vaishyas, when the person decides that no more am I materially focused, that person automatically in their own mind state reaches that next level of Rajas or Brahmana state. So this is all at the mind level, and that is why I'm so glad Usha brought this comparison, to show this thing. So really, thank you, Usha, for this. So Vaishya is more from the materialistic point of view. That is a person who is focused on material. So long as I'm focused on material things, my mind is not this one. But the minute my mind starts to focus on the higher goals of life and to go beyond materialism, it is already available for that knowledge. And so too with Shudra. So Shudra aspect again, the focus many times for a Shudra person is, the person goes from day to day. The focus is on today. Let me get this work done. So long as I'm satisfied by it, I am good. So the focus is not on the higher knowledge. But then even for a person who is doing the work on a day-to-day basis, but the focus is on that Brahman, that Paramatma, then such a person also can go forward. So I hope, Usha, if you're there, if this makes sense. Anyway, I think Usha probably may join later, but so that was the reason I wanted to bring that thing up. Now, the second question is about where he talks about the Bhakta attaining moksha, sounds more like Dvaitam rather than Advaitam. I was wondering how to interpret this philosophy. So here also, I think we had talked about when we had a long discussion on bhakti. Um, Bhakti basically is at different levels. One is at the level of karma, the other one is at the level of upasana, and ultimately it is at the level of knowledge itself. So the fundamental quality of bhakti being surrender, the idea is what is the goal to which I'm surrendering. So, in the beginning, of course, my goal for bhakti, for example, and we had this discussion also before, which is, how we had this artha bhakti, artharti, jignasu, and jnani. So those are the four different levels of bhakti. So, at the level of artha meaning that you're for material. So, Krishna says that is not wrong. So long as you are coming to me for something, even though you may need material in the beginning, you need to get your promotion, you need to get your, certain amount of bank balance, even just to put the food on the table, I'm praying to Lord Krishna. So that is bhakti. So yes, in that sense, there is a sense of Dvaitam, no question about it. So in the beginning, there is a sense of Dvaitam, is that I'm not able to handle things by myself. Oh Krishna, please help me. You're the only one who can save me. So there is a Dvaitam which is created. But very soon, that same bhakti from a material standpoint, after some time, when the person either becomes comfortable or the person recognizes that at the end of the day, my needs have changed, my needs is no longer material, then I start to glorify Krishna. And that's where the Upasaka comes into place. Even at that point, there is a Dvaita, you know. And then from there on, uh, later on, then I recognize that that Krishna represents that ultimate knowledge. And then ultimately, at the end of the day, who is that knowledge? What is that knowledge? There is nothing but pure knowledge at the end of the day. So the translation changes from Dvaitam to all the way up to Advaitam. So anyway, just wanted to share and reflect upon this. Any comments from anybody? Okay. So let's move on to, so these are, we will actually be looking at this. I put it up here, but then we will look at it further later. And in shlokas, of course, 31, we talked about how Kshipram Bhavati Dharmatma Shashvat Shanti Nigachati Kaunteya Pratijanihi Name Bhakta Pranashati. So here Krishna is, uh, giving is continuous assurance about the fact that the second my goal changes, my goal is I need Krishna, I just need you and you alone. Immediately, that second, that immediate second, like a snap of a hand, snap of your fingers, you find that Krishna is saying that, I'm there for you. For such a person, I'm there for you. So Kaunteya Pratijani, he can know for certain that Name Bhakta Pranashati, I will never allow you to be destroyed. And this is the same thing as what he says, Ananyas Chintayanto Mam Ye Jana Paryupasate Desham Nitya Viyuktanam Yoga Kshemam Vahamyaham. The second I change my focus, my goal, immediately Krishna is saying, I'm there to take care of you completely. I will not allow you to be destroyed, right? So here we saw these two examples last time. And then in Shloka 32, which we already reviewed just now, and then 33, where he's trying to show about how that, it is not, if I can offer this kind of an assurance, not just for, normal people in this world, what to talk then of the Brahmanas and even the Raja Rishis. This is, again, we talked about in the beginning of the 9th chapter about how those days, even the great, the kings were Raja Rishis. And for them, what then to speak, this impermanent and joyless were having obtained, they do worship. They have recognized that this world that we're living in is actually a very, very temporary world. But the problem, we are unable to recognize the temporariness or the impermanent is because, we are constantly in this part of the change. So people, the holy Brahmanas and the royal sages have recognized that they are beyond this change. They are that changeless substratum. So only from a changeless aspect, or the only from a change, only from a point of something which is absolutely stable, can one recognize the change that is happening, right? So anityam, asukham, lokam. So this world is full of this impermanent. There is really not any kind of joy. What we are experiencing as this joy or happiness at the end of the day is something so temporary, and we get so hooked to it. It's an addiction, that we get into. It's if we understand this word addiction, it is so powerful, because this addiction can be like we're saying, it can be for all these simple things, or it can be even for the highest goal. So we need to change that word addiction, because the minute we say addiction, we immediately think about drugs or alcohol and those kind of things. But the word of addiction is actually a very powerful one, because it changes our mindset. So we have to change our mindset to think that this world is actually anityam, asukham. All these joys that I'm experiencing today is so temporary. In and through the joy that I experience, whether it is as simple as putting a candy in a mouth, or rasagulla or gulab jamun, to all the way up to experiencing, my child's graduation, all that. Of course, we have to enjoy it, but in and through it also, I have to continuously remind myself, this is temporary. This is temporary. There is something which is even more finite, more infinite, more permanent. And that is what he's trying to push us through. And finally, the shloka number 34, which we were waiting for. So he says, then, Krishna really is pushing us. He's pushing us to follow just one pursuit. And this is like literally, as I said last time, it's a take-home message. He gives us a very practical, tangible teachings here. And he wants us to follow this kind of a new life. Literally, it is that ultimate lifestyle of a bhakta. And that is what he's trying to show, what he's trying to define here. So what is he trying to define here? So what are the 5 conditions? The 5 conditions he wants to show is, first, develop devotion to me. Okay. It's, again, this needs a lot of conviction from our side. And that's where the whole first through 9 chapters is all about. And then he says, make me as your ultimate goal. Again, we have so many goals that we're pursuing today. In and through all these temporary goals that we're pursuing, not that we don't need to pursue them. We do need to pursue them, because it's like a train which has left the station. We have taken this human body as soon as we were born, and now we have to complete the journey. So in order to complete the journey, there will be all those past karmas which have led us to take these new goals. So we will work through those goals. But in this birth, I have become a recipient of this wonderful knowledge. So let me use that knowledge to recognize what is my ultimate goal and what is my temporary goal. So in that way, he says, do not lose sight of me as the goal. Convert every moment of your life into a purification process. And always surrender to the Lord and do everything with that Lord's blessings. So this is the kind of 5 things that he's trying to show with the words, mad bhaktaha, mad parayanaha, manmana bhava, and madhyaji. Sorry, I think I went. Madhyaji, bhava, and finally, mam namaskuru. So these are the 5 things: mad bhaktaha, mad parayanaha. We'll go through again in kind of detail with this shloka here. So, Mad Bhaktaha, develop devotion to me. Mad Parayanaha, Ayanam. Ayanam means that abode or the goal. So, Mad Parayanaha. And then Manmana Bhava. Manmana Bhava. Again, single point. Ananya Chintayantuma. Think about that shloka. Have always that sight of me as a goal. And with that work in this world, anything and everything I do, look at it as only a kind of a way to bring the purity in my mind. Let that be an exercise of purification. And finally, with this, always surrender to the Lord. Anything and everything, just surrender. So that is how this shloka is being Manmana Bhava Madbhaktaha Madhyaji Mam Namaskuru Mam Eva Vaishyasi Mam Ev Aishyasi Yukta Evam. So, keeping me alone as the goal, Atmanam Mat Parayanaha, taking me as the supreme goal. So this is, so let's look at each one of these words kind of carefully. So this is, of course, not to be read as mad bhakta. Of course, we can look at mad bhakta in the sense he's just madly in love, He's madly in love with Krishna, like the gopis. Okay, so maybe in that way you can look at mad bhakta. And so again, bhakti, as we said in the beginning, we can look as the Lord as a means to my end of my materialistic pursuit, end of my worldly goals. I can start with that. And then after that, slowly and slowly, and Krishna is perfectly okay with that. He says, I'm not going to give you up just because you're not looking at me as the the bestest, choicest friend. But start with that, at least start with that, he says. And, he's willing to give us, like that's why in the pujas, right? In the pujas, they always say, Dhanyam, Dhanam, Pashum, Bahuputra Labham, Shata Samvatsaram. So whatever it is, he says, start with that. So the pujas, everything which is the ritualistic aspect of karma kanda, right? So he says, start with that aspect, be an artha bhakti and then move on to much bigger ones. So Krishna is literally saying, take me as your secretary, take me as your assistant. Whatever you want, I will do it for you. Okay. The only thing is that have me with you, just hold on to me. Take me along anywhere and everywhere. What a beautiful thought for today's world of mental health. I mean, it's really sad because here we have this wonderful knowledge which is saying, I'm there to help you completely. Don't have the suicidal tendencies. Forget about this. But we are seeing more and more of that happening, right? So the next one is, having done that, now you're graduating to a mad parayanaha, mad parayanaha. And we, at this point in time, this is the next level where I'm recognizing that at the end of the day, there is only so much that money is going to give me. I can work very hard. If I keep my goal as getting to be the next CEO of a company or whatever, it doesn't work that way, actually. All I need to do is work on improving my skill on whatever I am, and that will take me to my next level. But if I keep being the CEO as a goal, I may never get there. So I have to recognize that these kind of goals, these artificial goals that I'm setting up, they have its own limitations, because at the end of the day, I mean, it is actually not really rocket science. If I look at the number of variables that go into me attaining my goals, and if I know all those variables, if I know, for example, if I am planning to be the next, or I'm hitting my next promotion, and if I know that there are 10 other people who are also hitting for that same promotion, and if I'm if I take a kind of a high level overview and see where do I stack up in the midst of others, I'll have a much better idea, right? But we don't do that. We're so stuck on what is it important for me. So it doesn't give me peace It doesn't give me the security that I'm looking for. It doesn't give me the happiness. And it finally leads to so much of insecurity that, I get bogged down. So I need to really step back and see what is really my INM, what is my abode that I need to work on. So from the previous one where we said Mad Bhaktaha, where Krishna was my friend, now I'm graduating to the level where Krishna is my goal. Okay. And once having achieved this goal, now my mind has become a little more clearer, and all I need to do is that I should not allow any kind of distraction to come into being to prevent this goal being different. So manmana bhava. So here I am now focused on making Krishna as my goal. And with that as my goal, I'm still working hard. I'm still trying to do everything that I'm doing, but I'm not now, my mind is a lot more as it's at peace. So it's almost like, for a musician, for example, a musician always has the Shruti box, right? The Shruti box is constantly in tune, and the musician always, when the musician sings, makes sure that he or she is not out of tune from the Shruti box. So to Manmana Bhava, I'm constantly making sure that my goal is that Lord. My goal is Krishna. And with that, anything and everything I do, it has to be good, right? So we also know that, when you're sitting in a concert, the second the musician goes out of Shruti, you can sense it. The musician, of course, sense it immediately. So too, so Manmana Bhava is being in tune constantly with that musician, with that music or the Shruti in mind. So next one is Madhyaji Bhava. So here, this is converting every action now as a worship of the Lord, you know. So one of the shlokas in this chapter 9 is that, Yat Karoshi Yadashnasi Yat Juhosi, that shloka, where he says, anything and everything I do at the end of the day is only for you, Krishna, only for you. So you can see how beautifully by doing this, it's almost like, the second I changed my diet, okay? Previously, because of all the junk food I'm eating, the thing, my arteries might be clogged or whatever. The second I change my diet and I say that from now on, I'm going to eat just sattvic diet, not too much of oil and stuff, all that, you can see how your arteries clears up, right? So something like that, this is kind of a really purificatory step where the second I say that at the end of the day, I'm doing it only for Krishna. Earlier, the previous thing was I'm having the bhavam of Krishna all the time, but now I'm actually doing it with only Krishna. So it is, everything is only for him. I see him in everything, everywhere. I see him in the lizard which just went by just now. All this, I see only him. Then where is a question of duality? Where is a question of any fear? Fear comes only out of duality. When there is a question of an otherness, right? So, and ultimately, the final step is Mam Namaskuru. So, I'm constantly going down to him. I'm surrendering to him. And, I recognize completely only his grace, which is there completely. And therefore, I'm constantly in surrender to him. So the 5 conditions, like we said, is develop devotion to me, make me as the ultimate goal, do not lose sight of me as a goal, convert every moment of life as a purification and surrender ultimately to that Lord. So that with that, we come to the completion of the 34th shloka. And this shloka, which is at the end of chapter 9, is very, very, very similar to the last shloka of the 18th chapter, which is, this here it says, Manmana bhava madbhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi yuktvaivam atmanam mat parayanaha. So here he says, Manmana bhava madbhaktaha madhyaji mam namaskuru mame vaishyasi satyam te pratijane riyosi me. So here in this 18th chapter, you know, he promises, literally Krishna is promising. I mean, can you imagine? It is we promise our superiors, anyone, that I promise I'll do this, I promise I'll do that. But here Krishna himself is really promising, saying that I will do this for you. He's making a firm resolve, and he says, if you come to me, I will take care of you. This is my promise. That is in the 18th chapter. So I will stop with this presentation here. Any questions, any thoughts before we come to, I'll chant the 18 chapters.
Hari Om.
Hari Om,
Yeah, just thanks for the explanation, detailed explanation. It's the all slokas go in a sequence, and as like someone climbing like a stairs, and then at the end, then Bhagavan gives a promise, Manmana Bhava Madbhakta Madhyaji.
Yep, exactly. So when I do this, we'll do the entire summary of the 9th chapter. And when we do the summary, we will touch upon some of the points again, because it's a nice summary. And but Meena, you wanted to say something?
Yes, Hari Om. So I just want to talk about 8th sloka. Prakritim swam avashtapya visrujami punah punah bodhakramam imam kritsnam avasham prakrudir vashat. So here, this is, I mean, all the slokas are good, but this one really I like it. He says all beings exist.
I'm sorry, which number is that?
8.
8? Oh,
yeah. Prakritim swam avashtapya visrujami punah punah bodhakramam imam krishnam avasham prakrutir vashat.
Right.
So he says all beings exist in me, but I do not dwell in them. Relationship, they are in me, but I'm not in them. So it's like I just wanted to check with you, can we compare like this? Like we build a house and there are many rooms in that, but we don't create any space inside the room along the walls. A new space can never be created because there's nothing like that. Only if you construct a wall, space appears to be created, but actually there's no separate space from the outer space. So when the wall is built, the room space is already the original space. Am I right? Without any recreation.
Correct.
We don't create any space. So when we build a wall in between, so it means we call it as one room and we call it as another room. But the space is the same.
Space is the same. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly.
So similarly, the space outside of us is the same as inside of us.
Right.
Is that correct?
That is correct.
But it appears to be separate because of our physical body.
Not only a physical body, but also all the notions that we have about ourselves, which separates us from others. Yes.
Yes. So we can
body,
compare
mind,
this.
And intellect. Yeah.
So I was thinking, can we compare this with the 8th sloka?
The thought, you mean the thought, what you just said?
The thought, yeah.
Okay. First of all, I want to clarify something, which is this section from 7th onwards, it basically, it's about this section where the idea of who is the creator comes into being, And what I mean by that is, from shlokas 1 through almost 6, we are talking about the Paramatma and everything. And so, taking the analogy, what you have said, now let me come to you. So this whole space outside, right? I mean, this actually everything that is out here is all nothing but space. Whether it's outside, whether it's inside, everywhere is nothing but space. Okay. So in Shloka, for example, 7, what Krishna is saying is at the end of the day, it is just me and me alone, which is everywhere, just like how space is everywhere. Okay. Now, in that space, again, taking the example you gave, we have all these rooms which are just nothing but physical barriers.
Yes.
If we destroy these rooms, at the end of the day, finally, it's just space.
Yes.
So we have taught ourselves to be those individual walls, and we are building more and more walls to separate ourselves from that original space which is out there. Correct?
Yes. Yes.
So that is very true. That analogy stands well. But in shloka number 8, what he's saying is, so Paramatma at the end of the day, I mean, Krishna is Paramatma is right there. And in one other shloka, previously I think it was in the 7th chapter. In the 7th chapter, he talks about himself as the higher self and the lower self. Okay. And the higher self, you can actually connect it to the space. So the higher self is a space which is all there. And in that space, we have all the beings, all these inert, animate and inanimate things which exist in space. That whole thing is the lower self of that same Paramatma. Okay. So in that, now, if you keep that in mind, so in 7, he says, Sarva Bhutani Kaunteya Prakritim Yanti Mamikam Kalpakshe Punastani Kalpada Visrujam Yaham. So continuously, that outer space doesn't undergo any change at all. Okay. It is only the lower self that is constantly undergoing change. So in 7, he says, at the end of every kalpa, the lower self is, coming again and again. And there is, this whole drama of life that goes on, everything goes, and then at the end of kalpa, everything goes back. In 8, what he's saying is that same Paramatma, at the end of the day, the lower self change again and again. Now, one may, in the later shlokas, he'll come to it, because by 7 and 8, one may think, oh, okay, then Krishna is the one who is actually creating all this. Krishna is the one who is dissolving it, all that. So in order to prevent that from saying, all he's saying in 8 is that I do send forth all this multitude of being helpless by the force of nature through the lower self. That is all he's trying to say.
Okay.
Okay. But your example is perfect for the role of Paramatma and the role for the whole creation itself, And here, just to connect it to that earlier shloka, like I said in 7th, I again and again send forth all these multitude helpless by the helpless. The word avashat, that word is very important. Avashyam, avashyam or avashat, avashyam prakrite avashat, he says, by the force of that whole nature, it's almost like, how do I say, suppose there is a business that is being created, okay? Let's take even Infosys or something as an example. Now, Infosys did not exist 30 years ago. Now, Infosys is such a big company now. Now, did Krishna really create Infosys? Did Krishna play a big role in how small it was and how it grew and all that? Yes and no, okay? Yes and no in the sense, it is because of that efficient cause, and that efficient cause word is also mentioned in chapter 9 at some point. He is the efficient cause. The example that is given of the potter and the potter and the pot. So you need a potter to create the pot, right? But that's all the potter does. At the end of the day, how big and small the pot has to be is part of the nature of the pot. Okay. The energy, if you want to say that way, is given by the potter to create it. So too, in that sense, Krishna was there to create Infosys to be what it is. But at the end of the day, the size of what Infosys is at the moment is because of all the people who have created Infosys to be what it is. He is not really responsible for how small it is, how big it is, what kind of losses it happened in the stock market. All that is not his job. Okay. He just gave the necessary needs to have the Infosys being made to what it is. Does it make sense? So that is why it's in that's the reason I bring that example is because in chapter 8, in Shloka 8, he says, animating my Prakriti. So Krishna is animating that Infosys for what it is. And at different decades that Infosys went through, I again and again sent forth all this multitude of beings. So whoever was there in Infosys in the beginning, for example, may not be there. There's somebody else who was there. Now, how did that person land in Infosys at this point? How did that person become part of this? All that Krishna is not really responsible. It is all the responsibility of that individual's karmas, because of which Infosys is what it is. Okay, so that's how we have to look at 8 in that sense. But the example that you mentioned about the space in this one is actually in 6, I think. Yatha Kashun Vayus. Yeah, go ahead.
So we can say that's what I was trying to understand myself. All beings exist in me, but I do not dwell in them. So there's no space, but we are thinking there is some space.
How so? I didn't understand that second part.
We are thinking when we build a wall, then we think that, oh, we have created space, but actually speaking, no, it's the outer space. So the same way, I was trying to think like this. So like what Lord Krishna says, all beings exist in me, but I do not dwell in them.
Go ahead.
So we think that we are dividing with a room or with a wall or something, and we think that, oh, we created some space, but actually speaking, we did not.
Correct. We did not create any space.
Any space.
Space is always there.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, thank you so much.
No problem. I just noticed the time is 6:51. It's only 9 minutes. Instead of summarizing, which I can do it next week, and we can start the 10th chapter also and chant it. I had prepared a whole presentation actually for a summary from the 9th chapter to the end. We can do it next week, but does anybody else want to talk about any particular shloka which appealed to you? There are some of the most beautiful shlokas in this chapter. I was going to actually put a kind of a short presentation on also which are the most beautiful ones, but I can actually even say but anybody wants to mention anything particular? Anant, do you have any favorite?
Number 21. Sloka number Tetam Bhuktva Swargalokam Visalam Khine Punya Marchalokam Visanti. So, this sloka, as I see that, conveys a lot of meaning. It says, those who go to heaven, once they're done, whatever punya, whatever they accumulated, right? And then it's like what a balance they have. And, they stay there. And once they're done, they're back to the, like Marchaloka. Again, in general, the thinking is heaven is the highest one. In general, other general thinking, apart from Bhagavad Gita. But here Bhagavan says, there are things beyond heaven. That's where the moksha or the so there are things beyond heaven. So there's a powerful message mentioning, because the people do lot of yajnas, danas, and everything to go to heaven.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that is, just the emphasis here in this sloka is that's not the ultimate. So
Correct.
just everyone can, for all of us to keep in mind.
That's right. That's right. It's a very practical shloka, right? I mean, so the shloka, both 20 and 21, they go together, and they are kind of, because, up to the 19th shloka, Krishna is describing his own nature. And then his nature is at such a high level. So he wants to kind of bring this point that, well, let me bring you down a little bit and explain to you, the aspect of, in many ways, this is actually tied to the 8th chapter also, where in 8th chapter there's the discussion of Krama Mukti, Krama Mukti is the step-by-step liberation. So, like even in our own households, we would have seen at the end of the day, after somebody is retired, and then you start to spend a ritualistic life, thinking that, okay, the next thing I want is only heaven. And why do I need heaven? Because in heaven, first of all, the physical body that you have is of a different nature altogether. There is a lot more, not so much of an earthy material, more of an earth, and more of an air and wind and space, all that is there. So that means I can live long. And so that is where, he describes, so people who have understood and the drinkers of Soma purified from worshipping me, so they enjoy in heaven the divine pleasures of God. And not only that, you're also, you're closer to Krishna. So you are coming, you get to enjoy his, not exactly, but more, you come to enjoy more divine atmosphere. So in 21, he's trying to say that, great, all that is very good. And you can get to, if you get to Brahma Loka, and Brahma Loka again, Brahmaji will actually give you this Vedanta knowledge. You will get to listen to it, and you can attain that liberation. But he said, thus having enjoyed the vast, but then there is this point of people who have worked hard. It's like us going to Las Vegas. I think I've given that example before. I really work hard and I want to enjoy the most beautiful pleasures and everything. And I feel that, okay, I go to Las Vegas, but what happens in Las Vegas? I exhaust all my punyam, and then I have to come back. I have to come back. So that is, so Anant, you pointed out very beautifully this aspect of what am I really aspiring for as my goal. If I'm aspiring for some things like, where I go to heaven, enjoy, guess what? I have to come back. And so there is that samsara, he says, gata gatam kama kamaha labante, gata gatam kama kama labante. Just like in chapter 2, right? I'm carrying this baggage of thing and I come back. I'm always, the desires are always in my head. I need to get rid of those desires. Yeah.
And also in 29, Samoham sarva bodeshu name dvesh yosti na priyaga e bhajanti tumam bhaktiya maite desh chapyaham. So he says, I'm saying to everybody, there's no partiality, no hatred, no hateful nothing. Those who worship me with devotion, and I'm with them.
Correct.
I mean, assuring. So
Correct.
we think sometimes, we think, oh, why am I getting it? Why me?
Why me? I
Sometimes,
know. Right.
Sometimes I think. So this explains, this is the answer to it. So he's not partial to anybody. For sure, he's not partial. Those who worship with devotion, he takes care of it. And then the last one, fix your mind on me, devotion to me, sacrifice to me, bow down to me, you can come to me alone, having united yourself, taking me as a supreme goal. So this last 34, oh my God, that gives the whole gist of the 9th.
Correct. And in the book, in this Gurudev's book, Swami Chinmayananda's, it's just, this book is just absolute. I mean, the whole week I had this opportunity to go back again, read through, and I really felt like I was reading it for the first time, to this shloka, like, there's one sentence he says, what does that practically give me? What this fixing your mind, manmana bhava mad bhakta madhyaji mam namaskuru. What is it from a practical standpoint that gives me? It basically gives me an awareness and alertness, and if you look at it, even in a regular materialistic world, right? What we need to be very successful is being alert, being aware, and that will take me forward. Now here also, the same thing, what he's saying is that when I know that my goal is that Krishna, and I'm working hard towards it, I won't be thinking only about myself all the time. I will see Krishna, Krishna everywhere. And I will do things only for him. Whoever comes to me in front of me, who has come this one is nothing but Krishna, This way, there's a constant awareness that is maintained. And that is the secret of success. That's how he ends this book, which is just so beautiful. When thus you take me as the supreme goal, you shall come to me. We are who we are because of our thoughts. If the thoughts are noble and divine, we become noble and divine. That's so, yeah. And in Panchadasi, he says, Tat Chintanam, Tat Katanam, Anyonyam, Tat Prabodhanam, Etad Eke Paratvam Cha, Brahmabhyasam Vidur Buddha. So this verse is just beautiful. This Tat Chintanam, Tat Katanam. And constantly, he's the one who's there in my thoughts. He's the one who's doing everything. He's the one. So, yeah, this as they say, this shloka takes the cake, I mean, it's the ultimate in meditation. Yeah.
Very nice. Thank you.
You're welcome. So next week, we'll definitely just summarize the whole thing and we'll chant the whole 9th chapter and then we'll start the 10th chapter also. So we'll meet next week. Sarve bhavantu sukhinah, sarve santu niramayaha, sarve bhadrani pashyantu, ma kaschit dukha bhag bhavet. Om shanti shanti shanti. Om Purnamadav Purnamidam
Purnat Purnamudachyate
Purnasya Purnamadaya
Purnameshishyate
Om
Shanti
Shanti Harihi
Om Shri Gurubhyo Namah Hari Om.
So until next week, see you, take care. Hari Om.
Hari
Hari
Om.
Om.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sunitha ji.
Welcome.
Hari Om.
Good
Thank
to
you.
see you.